We'll begin. Good morning. Name is Javier Becerra, Chairman of the Democratic Caucus. I'm joined by our leader, Nancy Pelosi, and the ranking Democrat on the Ways and Means Committee, Sandy Levin. We had a very good session today. We had an opportunity to discuss a number of items. Clearly, we're going to be talking in the future soon about the Republican budget priorities when they submit their budget this week. We know that we've heard a number of reports that they're already planning to privatize Medicare, turn it into a coupon instead of a guarantee of services and benefits to the tens of millions of seniors who count on Medicare. We're also interested to see how they fare when it comes to investing in education, in the building of our roads and bridges, and repairing our infrastructure. But we're very concerned because we hear reports that this is a budget that actually divests, not invests in America. We had a conversation today which I thought was extremely robust and sets us on a good course this week with follow-up meetings with the administration on trade. We're going to have an opportunity to dive deep into the subject matter because our members are very interested in learning as much as possible about the administration's plans when it comes to trade, and also how we go about trying to move forward to make sure that trade is good for Americans, not just American workers and American businesses, but our laws and our institutions as well. We also know that we're going to have an opportunity, we hope soon, to have a new Attorney General, and we hope that Loretta Lynch, who has demonstrated that she is eminently qualified, will have an opportunity to have an up or down vote this week in the Senate, and that no longer will shenanigans be played with her nomination, because it's time to make sure we have the top law enforcement officer in place and ready to go. And with that, let me turn it over to our leader, Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You gave a full array of issues that we are dealing with right now. I'm going to focus on the issue that Mr. Levin and I focused on in the meeting, and that is to review the possibility of a trade agreement. I have always said that I wanted to find a path to yes in terms of fast track and TPP. We are trying to do that. It's a difficult path. I would like to see both Democrats and Republicans come together to address the global economy, which we know is inevitable and that we are a part of, to come together to have a trade agreement that raises the paychecks of America's workers, that increases manufacturing in our country. To the extent that what the administration is proposing does that, we will find some areas of agreement. So far, there are very serious questions about what is in the TPP. We mostly have not seen all of the provisions. As the chairman said, we will dig deeply into this. But I see this discussion as an opportunity for our country, in a bipartisan way, to think in new and fresh and entrepreneurial ways about how we deal with trade. And that does not slip back into old notions that have been put forth, that unless you're an internationalist, you're not of the future. Quite the reverse. We are internationalists. We are of the future. That does not mean that we do that at the expense of the paycheck and the manufacturing base in our country. We can do this in a great way, in a nonpartisan way, in a way that the American people feel confident that as we go forward into the future, we're doing so with the word trade meaning exactly that we are exchanging goods in a fair manner, that we are honoring one of the pillars of our foreign policy, which is to promote our economic interest, but again, not doing it at the expense of American workers, which has happened in the past. So this is I'm excited about what the possibilities are. I see great opportunity for bipartisan cooperation. I hope that the administration will be receptive to how we see a better path to yes. Thank you.
Ranking Member Levin.
This was an important meeting. It's really a kickoff within the Democratic caucus on digging into substance. I think it represents really a shift, so there's less a focus on process and more on the substance of it. Because I think overwhelmingly, members don't want to give their leverage up until they have a better idea of what's in the package and also what's in the package that they think needs to be changed. And today we discussed a number of subjects. We focused in on substance. We talked about currency, and tomorrow Secretary Lew is going to be coming, and we're going to be talking more about that. A number of us for a long time have been saying currency is a trade issue and it should be in a trade agreement. We talked about investor state, which is also one of the controversial issues. That also has to be addressed, in my judgment, has not been satisfactorily addressed in TPP so far. There was an issue raised about rule of origin. It seems like how important it is, but it's very important so that if there is a TPP, it must make sure that goods don't come in from China to other places. We talked about labor in Mexico, and there are two major issues regarding labor. The May 10th agreement was a major breakthrough on labor and the environment years ago. But Vietnam has one union, and it doesn't begin to meet the basic ILO standards of the right of workers to be represented. And there are problems with Mexico also. And those were discussed by our presenters. So I think today really marked the beginning, or at least the acceleration of our caucus digging in to this, the substance of TPP, and having back and forth with interest groups, and now tomorrow we'll have back and forth further with the administration. So we're digging into what really matters, not what is the track, but what's on the track. What's the content? What do we like? What we don't like? One last point about transparency. There was discussion of this, and we want to make sure there is total access by members and staff to what is in the TPP, and also we want to know from the administration where it's going. So, Leader, I just want to say today, you know, things are confusing all about trade. It's a very controversial issue. We've been living with it for 25 years. But we Democrats have been instrumental in shaping trade agreements. We often were the authors, and we actually negotiated in the case of Peru with the government when the administration wouldn't do it. So, Madam Leader, I think you essentially said, let's dig in to substance, and that is what we did today.
Question? Yes. Madam Leader, can we have your readout on how the Israeli elections will affect U.S. relations regardless of the outcome?
Well, we'll all see what happens at the end of today. But U.S.-Israeli relations are very strong. It's important to our own national security to support the security of Israel. It's a very, very, again, intellectual relationship, security relationship, and an emotional one as well. A democracy, the only democracy in the region, our shared values, our great history, and again, our national security.
Mr. Netanyahu's speech hurt his prospects here?
I have absolutely not. You'll have to go to Israel and ask the people there as to what that prospect was.
Madam Leader, do you think that the administration is on the path to yes, given that there are concerns in the caucus that they're not being forthcoming enough about the TPP, and that currency is still not part of the TPP?
Well, I do believe that some of the, shall we say, impatience of our members to have access to material is a legitimate one. However, the administration is making it available. Tomorrow they'll be there morning and afternoon. The Secretary of the Treasury in the morning, other leaders in the Secretary Perez, Secretary of Labor, and others in the afternoon. There's a concern about why some meetings are classified or not. We can get over that. That's mine. That's process. And as Mr. Levin said, we're not here to talk process. We're here to talk policy. What is in the legislation? How can we make it better, meeting some of the concerns that we have about workers' rights, the environment, food safety, you name it. It may be, as we more is learned about what is in the bill, that we have some common ground, that we can make some improvement, or we can find areas of complete agreement or complete disagreement. But we will see. And I'm so really very excited about the opportunity that this presents, not just to say yes or no, but to say we can make it better. And I believe that the administration is very receptive to that, and that they have already had improvements over what was in NAFTA in terms of enforcement and the rest, but we have to see how real that is. But it is within our grasp in a nonpartisan, a bipartisan way, House and Senate, White House, to do something that is in keeping with what my inspiration, President John F. Kennedy, said that the Democratic Party is the party of free trade. In being that party, though, we want to be the party of fair trade and the party that increases the paycheck of our workers and the manufacturing capacity of our country.
Could I just add, I want to emphasize, since you asked about process, what's happening is that there is now this shift to talk about the substance of TPP.
Yeah.
It is an unusually important agreement involving 40% of the GDP in this world. And I know it's easy to write about process and more difficult to write about substance. But in the end, it's the substance that is going to matter. It's the substance that's going to matter. And there are a dozen issues that remain outstanding where there's meaningful back and forth, and the leader has made it clear we're going to talk about substance because in the end that will determine process.
And in that score, if the gentleman will yield, I want to commend the ranking member of the Ways and Means Committee for the intellectual resource. He has been just great in identifying different concerns, asking for answers from the administration to take us to a better understanding of what's in the bill. But again, this is part of an economic agenda, a middle-class economic agenda that addresses the challenges faced by the middle class in our country. And there's so much more about it, whether it's the budget, whether it's trade, whether it's tax policy and the rest. It's comprehensive. It's complicated. This is an important part of it.
I'm sorry, my question is actually about process, because my understanding is that the administration feels that it needs TPA in order to complete the TPP agreement, but what Congressman Levin has been arguing seems to be the opposite.
Well, no, it's not the opposite. It's saying TPA. If you want TPA, let's find out what you want TPA for.
Right.
So
You're not saying that you need to see a final TPP agreement.
Well, we have to see TPP. It may not be the final agreement, but we have to see what it is. What are you asking for trade promotion for? What are you asking fast track for? If there's a clear understanding of what that is, and the back and forth has taken place and questions are answered by the administration, then there might be a better chance for the Trade Promotion Act. But I don't want to get into the process, but it is a chicken and egg. You know, there's some people who say, let's just defeat Trade Promotion Act because we don't know what's in TPP. Mr. Levin very rightfully says, well, let's see what's in TPP and then make a determination about TPP.
Let's try to get to as many questions as we can.
Sorry. No. No, we don't talk about that in this kind of meeting anyway. But no, this was strictly the substance of the bill.
This is on substance. We would never, as the leader said, talk about fundraising. We're trying to talk about the substance of trade. It's important. We've promoted and voted for trade agreements when we shape them correctly. That's what the issue is.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so it seems pretty clear, Leader, that you're sort of taking on what Mr. Levin has been saying for a long time, that we need to focus on the substance of TPP,
Right.
not the process. Are you also taking on the specific recommendations that Mr. Levin has made, for these maybe 12 sort of taking these on as the caucus's demands for, how the TPP should end up?
Well, these certainly I commend the ranking member, Mr. Levin, for the proposals that he has put forth, actually questions he has asked the administration. I'm not here to say that they are inclusive of all of the concerns of the caucus. We'll see as we dig into the substance as to what other questions may arise. But they are a solid block of concerns that members have, and we're anticipating getting some very thoughtful answers to them. But that is not inclusive of everything.
But he's also laid out the proposals for how he wants to resolve those. So I guess, are those proposals as well something that the administration that the caucus is backing, for instance, on currency?
But I would think, generally I would say yes, but again, until we dig deeper into the substance, then some other concerns about those particular issues may arise. So this is, open. Read it, understand it, question it, and then let's see where we can find agreement.
Take one last question.
But his product is a very valuable head start on all of this discussion.
Madam Leader, how eager are you to see a member of your delegation run for the Senate seat? And what advice have you given to those members of the delegation who talked to you about their interest in running? Maybe those right here.
I'm going to leave since I'm not one of them.
Well, we have such a plethora of talent in our caucus and in our leadership. And so for me to see Mr. Becerra, our distinguished chair of the caucus, Mr. Van Hollen, the ranking member on the Budget Committee, Congresswoman Donna Edwards, the co-chair of the Steering and Policy Committee, and others, other members, Mr. Cummings looking at the race, our ranking member on Gov Reform. Please don't let me have to say all the names because I won't. Tammy Duckworth in Illinois, Patrick Murphy in Florida. There may be others. I don't want to make announcements for them, but again, I want to say that this is not inclusive of all the names of people who are thinking about running. Mr. Delaney in Maryland as well. I think you could probably say that Senator Mikulski's decision not to seek re-election has caused a stunning change in our House Democratic Caucus if everyone who says he or she is running decides to run. I think that's the biggest hit in terms of the talent in the House. Now, we're used to improving the talent in the Senate and sending over some of our very best people. It's just that so many of the people who are in the leadership in the House of Representatives are looking at that. And so my view is bittersweet. I want members to reach their own personal fulfillment, and they'd be great, I know. I also want to see some generational change in the House, and I don't mean members of the House going over to the Senate. It means generational change here in the House. So hopefully in the course of the next few weeks or months, there'll be some winnowing down, at least in the Maryland delegation. I think almost everybody, not Steny, but almost everybody else is looking at the race, and just speaks to how talented our California delegation is, our Maryland delegation is, our Illinois delegation is. I'm not sure we've seen all of the candidates in Illinois. Our Florida delegation, I know that we haven't seen all of the candidates there. So it's a very interesting time.
Do you want to see someone from California run in that primary?
Well, if somebody from California will run in that primary.
From the House delegation.
Well, that's up to the members to make their decision. If I had my way, I'd have none of them run and all stay here and continue to enrich our leadership in the House of Representatives. But that's not how decisions are made. They're personal and individual and timely in people's lives and in their careers, and the contribution that they can make and the opportunity that they have. But no question, the two Babs Barbara Boxer and Barbara Mikulski. Those two announcements of retirements have had an impact on possible changes in the House of Representatives. But God bless them. You know. We didn't discuss that today in the caucus. We are waiting to see what comes back from the Republican side. I'm optimistic that we can find a way to have a doc fix in time before the SGR expires. We're trying to work in a bipartisan way on this, in a bicameral way as well. But I don't know if this was discussed in the Republican caucus, but I'll be eager to hear how it was received there. We haven't brought up in caucus. We've talked about it in leadership. We've talked about it at the Steering and Policy Committee. But I was really determined that today would be a meeting that focused completely on the trade issue so that we could stay on our schedule of having our deep dig into the substance, into the policy in that legislation. When we know more about what's in the SGR, then we'll have more of a discussion of it in the House. I'm optimistic. In the House Democratic Caucus, I'm optimistic about that. Thank you all very much.